Yes, yes, I can see us. We
You're
are
in.
live. So welcome everybody, and thanks for joining us today. And this is another one of my cat chats to series, which is just a series of chats to women about how we can feel better. They might have an area of expertise that perhaps we've not tried before, but generally all these women that I'm having on to chat are inspirational, motivating and wonderful people. So today I have Jacqui. Jacqui, can you pronounce your surname for me?
Hello, my surname is actually Williamson. It's backwards because of work-related things. That's why.
Oh, now that makes sense.
Yeah,
Williamson. Okay, it's Jacqui Williamson.
it looks
And
Russian, doesn't it?
and Jacqui's going to talk to us today about wild swimming, about cold water therapy, mindful walking, and generally kind of mental health and well-being, and how we can tap into that a little bit more. So I thought what would be good is if I let people know like how we met, which we haven't met. Well, we haven't known each other very long at all, have we? Really, within the last few months, I think it is,
Yeah.
isn't it?
Yeah.
Within the last few months. And I think, do you come to a yoga class of mine with Yogalicious?
Yes,
Yeah,
I did.
and we somehow chatted, and then I'd seen that you were doing this kind of cold water and wild swimming, and I had just got into, well, not just got into, but over the last year I've developed a really strong interest in Wim Hof and cold water. And so I was really intrigued, and you were the first person in Shrewsbury that was like, oh, you're doing something that I'm really interested in and similar, like no one else is doing this. And then all of a sudden, like, it seems to have boomed, this kind of wild swimming. So I'll kind of tell everyone a little bit more about my experience with Wim Hof. But before I do that, tell me, what's your background and experience with water and wild swimming, cold water and wild swimming?
Yeah, my background goes back to when I was a child, and I think that's the same for a lot of us. We tend to do a lot more freer, more adventurous things when we're smaller. So I was brought up a lot in South Africa, and being outside in the wild in nature was just part of everyday life. Not many swimming pools where I lived, so I used to head down to local dams, the sea, reservoir, do some fishing and do some wild swimming as well. So I kind of grew up with it really. And then I grew up, became a grown up and had my two beautiful children. But with them, things changed a lot for me somehow. And I became quite worried about the world, quite nervous, anxiety kicked in, the world was changed for me. And I stopped going outside so much, and missed out. And because I was a child when I first did it, I didn't realise all the health benefits that came with it. And I became stuck, and I was there probably for quite a few years. And then I started climbing after I saw my son doing it. This was a few years ago, and that just opened up a whole new world for me, being outside. And then the swimming just naturally came after that. I rediscovered my love for it, started visiting different places, and then people started asking me how I did it, and what it brought to me, because they could see a difference. My family, close friends could see a difference in me, and I just loved it, and it's became addictive and part of my life really. I find that if I don't swim outside or get that cold water blast, I can go quite a little bit done, a little bit flat. So it's become part of my life, and it's opened up so many new doors now for me. My whole world has expanded, and become big and not as safe, no, but wonderful and wild again. So that's my experience of wild swimming.
Oh, amazing. That sounds fantastic. I mean, for me, wild swimming is it's a brand new thing. I never went swimming as a child in the wild. But for me, the journey to get to this point really started probably a year and a half ago, when I'd started listening to podcasts about Wim Hof, and I'd kind of, first of all, and being that my company is called Breathe Dance and Yoga, it was all about the breath. So kind of as I was finding out and becoming more intrigued about the breath, it was kind of like directing me to Wim Hof. So my first instance and entry point was about the breath work. And then, you know, listening to his podcasts, and then about the cold water, the ice water, should I say, the ice water. I was like, okay, wow, all of these things. And, you know, my health issues have been around an autoimmune disease, so like eczema and asthma. And I've constantly been looking for ways to overcome these. And lots, you know, that involves lots of, you know, dampening down the inflammation. And so the breath work, the cold, had these massive benefits to inflammation in the body. So I did then, so it was February that I went to an actual Wim Hof workshop. The breathing I found was really profound. And then I did my first ice bath. But to build up to that, I had to start cold showers. Now, if anybody, you know, those people who know me, I was never going in the cold. You know, it was like, get me in a warm swimming pool, that's where I want to be. But the very first time I did that ice bath, I found like changes already. And so like my eczema on my scalp disappeared overnight. And I just, yeah, there was just something, it just sparked up this sense of vibrancy. And I've done cold showers ever since. And, you know, I was really lucky to find you, and then had a wonderful experience going up to a beautiful wild pool. And I think it can be really profound, the difference that it makes on you. And yeah, I'm just so happy that we get to chat about it and share it.
Yeah, you might need to shut me up today, because I'll probably waffle on so much about it. But I'm the same, Kat. I think for me, again, it's finding that vibrancy and feeling alive and overcoming fears. And I take that across with me in all areas of my life now. I think, well, I don't really want to go to that interview, or I don't want to go to that party. I've got, you know, social anxiety, but I can get in water that's really ice cold and swim. And that sees me through so much in life, and that's how it opens up doors for me as well.
Yeah.
So through that, do you want me to talk a little bit about Wildgain now?
Yes, please. Yeah, because you've got a company called Wildgain, haven't you? So yeah, tell us all about it.
Wildgain came about this year. It wasn't supposed to. It's been kind of brewing inside for quite a long time now, but I just wasn't quite sure of how that would come out. I really wanted to do something creative, and I wanted something of my own, but I also wanted to give something back as well. So like I said before, lots of people have been asking me, how do you get into the water? How long do you stay in? All of those questions that need answering. I remember when I took one of my first adult cold water swims, I had a really good friend who came with me, but there wasn't really anybody at the time to offer that more of that reassurance, and be more of a guide and say, this is where you need to go, or this is how long you need to stay in. So I just wanted to create a space where we could wildly grow, and that is kind of like my tagline.
I love it.
It's not just the cold water swimming. We do mindful walks as well, and I incorporate all that together. So I was going to launch next year, and then I just sat down at home during lockdown, like we all did, and just went, oh, I'm just going to put an event out. I just want to go swimming. I want to get people involved. So I put an event out for a mindful walk, and it ended up with a waterfall dip, which is the one that you did.
Yeah.
And people came, and I was like, wow, they've come. This is amazing. And it just grew from there, really. So I offer the mindful walks, and with maybe an introduction to wild swimming or cold water swimming, which I'll go through the mindful walks in a minute, a little bit more detail. And then I wanted an area where people weren't quite ready for going out in the wild yet, because it is a big step for a lot of people, and I get that. It took me some time. So I found Love to Stay, which is also where you do some of your yoga, don't you, Kat? And they've got a lovely outdoor pool there, but it's just kind of in the middle. So I called it the Wildish Swim Club. So we've got the benefits of swimming outside under the moon. We did it last night under the twinkling stars, but then we've got the luxury of the showers, and we can have coffee or hot chocolate goes down well, and a cake afterwards. And we all meet there every week, and people can come and try it if they want, and they know they're housed in a safe environment, and we support each other. And then if they want to, I do offer more wilder places to go and swim. And that's just a nice stepping stone for people just to get used to it. And there's various places that we swim.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit more about, because it's not just about the swim, is it? You've got, what's the, you said that there is it a Japanese word that kind of means mindful walking or forest bathing, is it?
Forest bathing. So
the other side of it.
So for me, while swimming, cold water swimming is just a small part of it. It's actually being outside in all the elements and being with nature, and then being mindful as well. Forest bathing, that it comes from Japan, and the word is Shinrin Yoko, and that directly translates into forest bathing. Which forest bathing isn't like just swimming in it; it's the canopy of the trees over you and all the chemicals that they release. So me included, a lot of people I know are great walkers, hikers, and we tend to march through on our walk. But by doing that, it's great exercise, but we miss so much. And I think especially in these times at the moment, we're very geared up for action. Let's do this, let's do that. Oh, we've completed that, but we're already thinking about what we need to be doing next. And that kind of just makes us quite stress, and anxiety can kick in with that. And there's a huge expectation. So for me, being mindful in nature, walking through, I don't teach people, I'm just there to guide, and I'll really walk slowly on purpose. We might do some breathing exercises just to sit back, our bodies, sit in nature, and just find ourselves and connect, and be with nature, because we are nature. We're not separate from it. But I think the way that we live nowadays almost separates us in a way that we have to go into nature, but we're already part of it. So it's just guiding us back to that element that we're there, and we have a place and we belong. And it's amazing all the things that you notice, and the details and the changing season. I just love it. And just the very act of looking up at a tree canopy releases so many good feel hormones and chemicals in your brain. So so going back to Japan, it became about in the 80s, where a lot of people had to move from the rural areas to the inner city and for work, and they missed out on being out in nature. And within a few years, they realised that there was a decline in health, physical and mental health. So they did some studies, and then they realised that people needed to go back out and be in nature. So they have, I think it's over 80 forest bathing areas in Japan now, and they're prescribed to go out and find their way in nature, which is just amazing. So that's where it originates from. But with the swimming, you probably know, Kat, that as soon as you enter that water, it forces you to be mindful. You have to be very much in that moment. It just, everything else strips away. So the very act of doing that ties in with the nature and the forest bathing. And also very often where we go swimming out in the wild is that walk down, where you can start to leave everything else behind and just be. So the health benefits of all of it together are just amazing.
It's like all these different facets to it, isn't it? And it's all nature's got lots of healing properties, hasn't it? It's you're right, we often kind of we're in our brick walls and separate ourselves away from it, and we've got our windows shutting out the air. So it's really nice to get out, and instead of shying away from the elements this time of year, to actually spend a bit more time out into it. And that's what we used to do. We had, we braced the elements, and it's really fascinating the more I read upon it, like the health benefits and what our DNA is meant, what we can genetically kind of cope with. It's really fascinating. And I think that they're getting into the cold water It's called hormetic stress. So it's kind of it's a stressful act on the body, but because you then breathe through it and you're kind of not running from it, your body then starts to regulate with it, and it can work more efficiently, which then means as you kind of come away from that, you build resilience and you're more able to deal with the real I don't want to swear, but the real stressful situations that come up. And it's like we always say that you can take, yoga is a way to then kind of cope with life better, but it's this, and this is another way of doing that as well, isn't it?
It is, definitely.
What other benefits do you find come from it?
Well, definitely, I'll go back to that in a minute, but I just want to expand on that a bit, because you're right. And for me, that is another great benefit. So as much as we're in this action stage, we've also been quite mollycoddled in the way that we live at the moment. So we have central heating. Hopefully, I know there's some people out there that don't have everything that we have, but the food is in the supermarket, everything is laid out for us. So our body's defenses, like you say, kind of become quite cathartic, really. So when you do go into the water and your body is in that shock, like you say, and that stress, your body is working so much harder for you. So one of the first things that your body will start to do is produce more white blood cells, which helps with to fight disease, fight stress, fight everything, really. But the health benefits, I go through this every week, and I'm sure I'm going to forget some, so feel free to jump in. For me, definitely, it's the mental health side, and it just makes me feel alive. So when you go into the cold water or while swimming, you have a release of lots of hormones, chemicals in the brain that keep you, because a lot of people think, and I first started it because it keeps you really high, but that actually can cause you to be a little bit too out there. It just keeps you really level. It's regulate, that's the word I'm looking for. It regulates a lot better. Tying in with that, it raises your libido, which a lot of people just think that's just sex, but it isn't. I mean, it is sex as well, but it's all the feel-good factors, how you feel about yourself. You can do that. You can do anything. How you look at your body image, I think it ties in with that. The water doesn't matter what body shape you are, or if you can swim, you can just dunk. It helps with your self-confidence. It helps to regulate blood pressure. It can help with your skin and your hair, and you actually get a bit of a blood flow rush. So they're now doing studies, and this is tying in with Alzheimer's and dementia. So what happens to the body is that when you first go into the cold water, all your veins restrict because it's protecting you, and all your blood starts to rush around your body. So all the blood that's sitting in your brain here that just usually sits there, it's being flushed around, so you're getting a new blood flow. And they're tying that in with studies now, which is amazing. What else? It helps to regulate heart.
Yeah, go on.
Yeah, so it helps with heart, any heart disease, anything like that. Your heart is working, it's a muscle, so it's working a lot harder. Again, with that ties in with your metabolism as well.
It reduces inflammation as well, doesn't it? So if you've got, if you've got any autoimmune conditions, or you've got some
sports related,
that cold really kind of reduces the inflammation, and that's been the biggest benefit for me. This time of year can be really tricky for my skin, and every time I have that cold shower, it just feels so in control. I feel in control, but then I feel like my skin's in control as well, which is really nice. But I've definitely felt all of those benefits, and you just everything. I think it was, we were talking about this, everything seems brighter and more colourful, and
it is.
There's just that renewed vitality.
That's actually the adrenaline rush as well that you get. So when you do come out of the water, I kind of describe it as someone's whipped a blanket off my head. When you get that quite heavy feeling, it's like, So I've heard people describe it as a swim grin, or they hit that sweet spot, and you just can't describe it. It's so addictive, isn't it?
Yeah, and you can't stop smiling. You can't stop smiling when you get out. You're like, oh, and it's that feeling, that oneness with nature then as well. It really does bring something to you that you might not necessarily get. I think we've talked a lot about one of the things that we did want to mention, but I've got my questions here. I'm just going to have a quick read through, and then I also thought this would be a good opportunity about what we've been brewing together as well, which got put on hold completely because of COVID. So we'll come back to that. But why should we? Probably touched a lot on it, but why should we as women take part in these kinds of activities? What's your take on that?
I think women should definitely take part in cold water or wild swimming, because it just opens up so many new worlds. And as even if you're a mum or not a mum, I think I don't know, I think women get quite a hard time, especially at the moment. There's a lot of pressures on us to work, have the family, do this, do that, how we look, how we treat each other, and how we judge or don't judge each other. And I just think water is just free, and it's liberating, and it doesn't care at all who you are, where you've come from. And I find that wild swimmers, I've met an awful lot, and there's no judgment whatsoever. It's just a space where you've got space to think and to breathe, and it's empowering. I think along the same lines, we're expected to do so much in our lives, but then there's still, I think, an element of, oh, women shouldn't really be doing that. And there's an expectation of how we should behave as well. It's wild, it's raw, it's freezing. And sometimes we yell, sometimes we shout and laugh, and sometimes we're just very quiet and go into ourselves. And it's just that whole element of you can be whoever you want to be. There's no expectations. And the friends that I've made, and the people like yourself, and so many different people that I've met, it's just amazing. So I think that's why women should do it.
And it's really empowering. I think that's one of the biggest things that I took away from it. And I remember when I was about to do my ice bath, and there was like 20 odd people around, and it was it was just like a slush puppy that I was stepping into. I mean, it was just slush. And and then I had this kind of little dialogue going on in my head, like, what, it's cold, it might feel a little bit painful, but I've given birth, like, what, I can do that, I can do that, I can do this. And it was like this little click in my head of going, you can do anything. And from that point I was like, I can totally do this. So, but there's always that kind of moment when you get in the water and it just takes your breath. It's like and for me it takes like a couple of times just to, okay, but you taking control of that is that metaphor for life, isn't it? Things Definitely. Can take your breath away, but you can bring it back, and you can be in control, and you can deal with it. You can, exactly. And it's pushing through that little tiny, and it's just a small window, isn't it? Small window. And then more you relax into it, the more all that good comes. That face the fear and do it anyway.
I think so. I think I find a lot of people when they first come, they're like, I'm really nervous. I'm like, but are you excited? Yeah. So it's like excited, nervous. And isn't that what life is all about? So from there on, I mean, I don't know what else you've got planned, Kat, but I wouldn't have started Wild Gain if it wasn't for cold water swimming. There's no way I would have thought start my own business. I couldn't do that. So it's given me the confidence for that. And now I've tried skydiving. I'm going to do paragliding, hiking in snow, the whole world. Now I'm like, well, if I can do that, I can do this. I got this. That nervous excitement. It's great.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah, I found it a really nice addition to, you know, yoga and dance are probably my central kind of healing modalities, and what kind of really sits at the heart of who I am. But I find that the cold water, and obviously, you know, like I said before, the Wim Hof breathing method as well, it just kind of connects in really nicely to what I'm already doing. And I agree, like, this year has thrown everything at us, but I feel like I'm going, okay, well, this is an opportunity for this, and I can do that. Like these chats, I mean, you know, going live every week. This wasn't a thing last year.
No.
You know, the earlier part of this year, you know, I was thinking about it, but it wasn't a thing. And now all of this is happening. So yeah, it really opens you up to what all your potential, all the potential that you have. So what are your tips for those who might be nervous to try it?
Yeah, okay. Nervous, I'm going to throw in safety as well, because I'm really big on safety. This is also one of the reasons why I do it. You're going to be nervous, and I think embrace that. Like we were talking about, it kind of ties in with that excited nervousness. And it's all about accepting the wild and nature as it is. So one of my phrases you'll probably hear a lot if you come out with me is, it's cold. Is it cold? Yeah, it's cold. Just accept it's cold and we're going to release to it. I think that's the first biggest bit of advice I give, is that it never gets any warmer. It's just that your mindset will change. The next one is to be prepared, because that helps. So get all your kit together. I'm here if you want any free advice on that. Make sure you've got the right towels, enough clothing. Don't ever underestimate how cold you're going to feel afterwards. So make sure you have all those layers. Scope out where you're going to go. Is it safe? Are you allowed to go there? Have a look at the points of entry, points of exit. I think the more prepared you are for all the practical elements, that kind of gives you the space to have a bit more free energy and bit more free headspace to think about the emotional side. Go with somebody, either somebody like me or a friend or somebody that already knows what they're doing. Usually I'd advise to start swimming outside, maybe during the summer months or the autumn months. But last night I had 2 new people start and they did it absolutely amazing. Listen to your body. Don't get into this competitiveness with maybe some other people. I haven't seen too much of this in wild swimming, but you know, I stayed in for 20 minutes, you know, stay in for however long you want. If it's 30 seconds, if it's 10 seconds, you've done it, it doesn't matter. What else? I think just enjoy it. Find something to go with. Don't do it on your own, and enjoy it. Really do your research, and that's what we're all here for.
Yeah, and perhaps as well they can start with some cold showers.
Yeah, cold showers. It's not for everyone though. It wasn't for me at first, but then lockdown has forced me to do this because I like the movement in water, but now I've got much more used to it, and I put on a song in the morning and I'm there bopping away. But it just helps with that cold water gas reflex, which if you do carry on swimming or your cold showers, it does disappear after about 6 sessions. That will disappear.
Yeah, I find that I don't really do it in the shower anymore. And I have my warm shower, like for anybody who is going, oh, you know, you get straight into a cold shower. No, I don't. I have my normal shower, you know, wash my hair, whatever it is. But before I get out, switch it to cold, and I'd stay in then for about 1 to 2 minutes. But yeah, it's definitely decreased, and the water's colder now because I started probably beginning of February this year. So I've got like the whole winter now where I've got this cold weather to really bring it down. But one of the things as well is what I've realized, like I had a bit of a sniffle the other week, so I carried on with the breathing. But I stopped the cold showers for a bit. So is that something that you recommend as well, if people are feeling unwell, that it's not necessarily to push through that?
Yeah, I don't push through it. There's been some occasions where I just don't want to go swimming, and sometimes there's no reason. And I think listen to your body again, especially with women. If you're going through your menstruation cycle, you can feel a little bit low, and sometimes you just want to go home and cuddle, get your hot water bottle out and things. If you're on antibiotics for anything, or like you say, if you've got a sniffle, I probably wouldn't, to be honest. One of the other benefits though is that I haven't had a proper cold for a few years now, which is great. But yeah, going back to what you were saying, Kat, I tend not to. Or even if you do go in and your body's saying no, I'm just not feeling it, just come out. There's no pressure whatsoever. Yeah.
And that's probably one of the things we forgot to mention, that it's a really good immune booster, isn't it?
It is. That's the biggest thing.
which is what we all need at the minute. Yeah. So providing you're not, you've not got any kind of apparent colds, then it's, it's a real boost to your immune system. So before I go on to some of the questions that people have left, and if you are watching this live and you've got any questions, then do pop them in. I'm going to have a look on my phone in a minute and make sure and read kind of what's happened under this live video. So if I've picked up some questions that people left before, but if you've got any others, then pop them in. But before we went into this lockdown, literally, I think it was the Sunday of lockdown, wasn't it? I think it was in that first week that it would have been when we found out, but we were planning on a little workshop together. So I thought this would be a great time to let people know what we have in store, because it will happen, won't it? It will happen, probably in 2021 now, but both me and Jacqui were really excited about what we both can bring together to women, and allowing people a safe space to take some time to drop into their bodies through yoga, connect to their breath, and experience cold swimming. And Jacqui, you also run moon circles as well, don't you? So it was bringing in that element too. Do you want to tell us a little bit more about that?
So the moon circles, this is something new for me as well this year, and it's just basically a really safe space for women to come, and we'll hold space for you, and we work with the cycles of the moon. So say if we choose a day that it's a full moon in Taurus, we'll look at the different elements and different aspects of Taurus and what a full moon can bring for us. And it's just a space where we can safely do some gentle inquiry and go into ourselves. And there may be tears, there may be laughter, probably laughter. It's just a space to be women and women together, and everything is confidential. We might draw some oracle cards. There'll be an altar in the middle with some very beautiful things, and we can add to that ourselves. And it will be different. Each one is different because it obviously depends on where the moon is sitting and which star sign and moon sign is at play at the time as well. So that's that side of it, really. It's quite a hard thing to explain until you've experienced it. But the main theme is that it's women together, it's empowering again, and it's just working through some aspects of ourselves maybe the moon cycle will bring up for us.
Brilliant. So anybody who is interested in, we planned it as like a 4-hour workshop. So it would include yoga, it would include some breath work, it would include the moon circle, it would include support and a cold swim. Plus, because as well, we would be doing this at Love to Stay, we will have the use of nice warm showers and the jacuzzis if you wanted to kind of use that. So if this is something that you're thinking, this is right up my street, then I want you to pop a little comment in below, because what we will be doing as soon as we can is arranging another date, and we'll probably do a little kind of early bird kind of email. So make sure that you pop below if you would like to be kind of the first one to hear about that, and we can do that. So some of the questions that came up, Jacqui, I'm going to have a look and see if there's anything under this in a second, but the questions that I picked up before, I think it was Louise. She said, what is a good way to get started? I've only swam in the sea when it's hot, and is a wetsuit a good plan?
This is one of the main questions, the wetsuit. So I'll answer that first. My answer is always the same. It's entirely up to you. It can be a good idea this time of year, but do remember that even if you're wearing a wetsuit, that water will still go down that wetsuit, so you're still going to get that cold water shock response that will kind of make you go but of course that water will warm up inside you, because that's what they're designed to do. The people that come on my swim groups, just wear whatever you need to. We all wear different things. I wear either a bikini or a swimsuit. This time of year I wear neoprene gloves and socks just so I can get dressed afterwards. I can feel my fingers. Some ladies wear a full swimsuit, long arms and long legs, because they just want to cover up. Some women wear a neoprene vest. Some women wear a full wetsuit or a short wetsuit. I definitely wear a woolly hat this time of year just to keep my ears warm. It doesn't matter. It's entirely up to you. A lot of people bring their wetsuits with the intention of wearing it, but then they're like, oh no, I'm just going to give it a go now. So maybe it's more of a safety thing for a lot of people. I don't know. One thing though, if you're going on a long walk, the wetsuit is really cumbersome and heavy to bring back. And it's quite tricky to get off as well. So
yeah,
maybe get a friend to help you drag that wetsuit off after, so you can get warm and dry.
Yeah, I've worn a wetsuit only when I've been surfing, which isn't a lot, but that's kind of the only time I've worn one. And yeah, they're heavy and really tricky to get off. really, really, really tricky. When I just wear a swimming costume. I think I'm really interested in the levels of what's the word I'm looking for, but our capacity to deal with hard things.
Yeah.
And I think we really outdo ourselves sometimes with our capacity, that we maybe hold ourselves with a bit of, it's we can only do so much, but actually we can do more. So I think I'm really interested in that. So I'm a swimsuit wearer. And I have to say as well, so I again, and with autoimmune conditions, I used to have Raynaud's pretty badly, and this time of year would really my hands and feet would be cold, and I have to say that it's really not as bad. And that comes back to that vasoconstriction, when the blood vessels kind of when you hit the cold water, the blood vessels close, but then when you come out and you're warming up, they reopen, and it's almost like a little, they're being exercised, aren't they? They're closing and opening. And yeah, this is the time of year where I can see it's not necessarily disappeared completely, but it's certainly not too bad. And maybe I'll be like you, where I get some neoprene gloves, just so that I can, I'm not kind of, when your fingers go dead when you're trying to put things on. I might look at that.
Well, some people don't wear the gloves because it's their kind of gauge of when they need to come out of the water. And again, it all goes back to how you're feeling and what you want as well. But going back to your Raynaud's, one of my favourite idols in the world is a lady called Jilly MacArthur, and she's a climber and an ice water swimmer, and she has that as well. And she still gets it sometimes like you, but nowhere near as bad. So it's definitely, there's something there that's helping.
Yeah, definitely. One of the other questions was, what's the coldest temp?
I didn't answer the other one though, sorry, about how the best tips. I just did the whole wetsuit thing. So sorry, I'm going to interrupt you there. Just to go back a little bit of how best to prepare, I think, again, go back to your cold showers, see how you feel with that, and contact somebody and just get that excitement going and just do it. If you're going to start in winter, but just make that time a lot shorter and prepare around it. Be very safe is what I'd say. But otherwise, cold showers.
Yeah, and you can start with just 10 seconds as well. You don't have to go for a full 2 minutes. 10 seconds. Doing Louise this week, 10 seconds after each shower of cold water. Another question was, what's the coldest temperature you've swam in?
So the coldest so far was 3 degrees. That was last year, and that was actually at Love to Stay. But my aim, when you're talking about pushing yourself, is I want to go in and break the ice. I want to do that. I can't wait. So at 5 degrees and below, they call it sub-zero swims. So if you hit 5 degrees or below, like I say, then you're entering that icy stage. So it's amazing. Last night the temperature was 7 degrees, so it is tipping, going down.
Amazing. I can't remember what the temperature of the ice bath I did, but it was literally a slush bath, so it must have been around the 2 or 3. So it wasn't a swim necessarily, but just that immersion into the cold. Yeah, I wish I had kind of taken notice then, but you know, that was the first time I was just like, am I going to do it? Am I going to do it? Let me see what other questions have come through. Lots of comments saying that they're really enjoying it, so thank you for joining us live, everybody. People interested in a workshop, which is brilliant. And so, but no other questions, but we have covered quite a lot. And if after this you pop a little link to your page as well, so Jacqui's page is Wild Gain, and then you can kind of keep up to date with any workshops that she's got coming up, which are kind of like based in on walks and wild swims. And then you know, we've got Christmas coming up, so we're not going to launch anything before then, but me and Jacqui will then get together and we'll launch our workshop, which I'm really excited about, and I hope that lots of you would like to come along and join us on that. And if you're watching this on replay, then again, drop any comments in. We will always kind of come back in and answer those, and also again, let us know if you're interested, because we'll pop you on a little email list to kind of get the first bit of information. So but other than that, thank you, Jacqui, for joining us today, and I've really enjoyed chatting to you, as always.
Me too.
But we'll say bye to everybody if you stay on, and then I'll say bye to you properly in a minute. But thanks everybody for joining, and yes, we'll see you soon.